A pleasant day, everyone. We are the Group 5, and our topic is about Sister Callista Roy. So, let me give you a quick background information of Sister Callista Roy. She was born on October 14, 1939, and she is now 82 years old. She is a prominent nurse, theorist, writer, lecturer, researcher, and a teacher. She is also a member of the Sister of St. Joseph of Carondelet. She finished her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Mount St. Mary's College in Los Angeles on the year 1963. Her master's degree in pediatric nursing in the year 1966. Her master's degree in sociology on the year 1973, and her doctorate degree in sociology on the year 1977. According to Sister Callista Roy, the person is a biopsychosocial being, which includes thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, also social and cultural factors. All these play a significant role in health and disease. She also believed that the person is in constant interaction with a changing environment. So to cope with a changing world, person uses both innate and acquired mechanisms which are biological, psychological, and social in origin. She also believed that to respond positively to environmental changes, the person must adapt. The person's adaptation is a function of the stimulus he is exposed to and his adaptation level. The person's adaptation level is such that it comprises a zone indicating the range of stimulating that will lead to positive response. Also, according to Sister Callista Roy, the person has 4 modes of adaptation. First one is the physiological needs. These are biological requirements for human survival. For example, food, air, drink, shelter, clothing, warmth, or sleep. And the second one is the self-concept. Self-concept is how we perceive our behaviors, abilities, and unique characteristics. For example, beliefs such as I am a good friend or I am a kind person are part of an overall self-concept. The third one is the role function. A functional role describes a set of skills and activities that are typically performed by a department within an organization. For example, a manager, director, or vice president. Functional roles are defined by the organizational structure of a company or your role in the society. And the last one is the interdependence. So what is an interdependent person? This is a person that recognizes the value of vulnerability, being able to turn to their partner in meaningful ways to create emotional intimacy. They also value a sense of self that allows them and their partner to be themselves without any need to compromise who they are or their value system. So, Sister Callista Roy also quoted that nursing accepts the humanistic approach of valuing other person's opinion and viewpoints. So, in order for us to live well or survive, we need to value other person's opinion and viewpoint. But of course, if it is good and healthy for you. Also, interpersonal relations are an integral part of nursing. So we need to have interpersonal relations with other people. As a nurse, we need to create or to have a rapport to our patient to effectively perform our duty. So the central questions of Roy's theory are: who is the focus of Roy's theories? What is the target of nursing care? When is nursing care indicated? And these questions will be answered throughout our discussion. the theoretical sources of Sister Callista Roy. So, Sister Callista Roy's adaptation model for nursing was derived in 1964 from Harry Helson's adaptation theory. Adaptive response are a function of the incoming stimulus and adaptive level. So, a stimulus is any factor that provokes a response. Stimuli may arise from the internal or the external environment. Helson's work developed the concept of adaptation level zone, which determines whether the stimulus will elicit a positive or a negative response. According to Helson's theory, adaptation is the process of responding positively to environmental changes. Also, Sister Callista Roy combines Helson's work with Rapport's definition of the system and views the person as an adaptive system. So, with Helson's theory as a foundation, Sister Callista Roy developed and further refined the model with concepts and theory from other disciplines. So, after the development of her model, Roy presented it as a framework for nursing, practice, research, and education.
The major concept and definitions of the Roy adaptation model. System. System is a set of connected units to function as a whole. It is characterized by inputs, outputs and control and feedback processes. Adaptation level. A constantly changing point made up of focal, contextual and residual stimuli which represent the person's own standard of the range of stimuli to which one can respond with ordinary adaptive response. Adaptation problem. Describe the difficulties related to the indicators of positive adaptation. These are the occurrences of situations of inadequate response to need deficits, seen not as nursing diagnosis, but areas of concern for the nurse related to the adapting person or group. The environment is the source of a variety of stimuli that can either threaten or promote the person's unique wholeness. Sister Callista Roy categorizes environmental stimuli as focal stimulus, contextual stimuli, and residual stimuli. Focal stimulus are the internal or external stimulus most immediately challenging the person's adaptation. It is the phenomenon that attracts the most of one's attention. Contextual stimuli. All the other stimuli present that contribute to the behavior caused by the focal stimuli. Residual stimuli. Factors that may affect focal stimulus but whose effects are not validated. These three types of stimuli act together and influence the adaptation level, which is a person's ability to respond positively in a situation. A person does not respond positively to environmental stimuli. The adaptation level is modulated by a person's coping mechanisms and control processes. Roy categorizes the coping mechanisms into regulator subsystem and cognator subsystem. Regulator subsystem responds automatically through neural, chemical, and endocrine processes. And cognator subsystem responds to complex processes of perception and information processing, judgment, and emotion. Roy proposed that the behavioral responses of the regulator and cognator subsystems can be observed in any of the four adaptive modes. First, physiological. Second, self-concept. Third, role. Fourth, interdependence. Physiological adaptive mode refers to the way a person responds to, to a physical being to stimuli from the environment. The five physiological needs of this mode are oxygenation, nutrition, elimination, activity and rest, and protection. Self-concept adaptive mode. Psychological and spiritual characteristics of a person. It is formed from perceptions, particularly of others' reactions and direct one's behavior. Role function mode. The primary, secondary, or tertiary roles the person performs in society. Interdependence adaptive mode. The coping mechanisms arising from close relationship that result in the giving and receiving of love, respect, and value. Coping mechanisms result to adaptive and ineffective responses. Adaptive responses responses that promote integrity of the person in terms of goals and human system. Ineffective responses that do not contribute to adaptive goals of human system. The major task of a person is to adapt to environmental stimuli to achieve survival, growth, development, and mastery.
Okay, so the use of empirical evidence. Roy and colleagues conducted a meta-analysis, critique, and synthesis of 163 studies based in Roy adaptation model that had been published in 44 English language journals on 5 continents, dissertations, and theses from the United States. Of these 163 studies, 116 met the criteria established for testing propositions from the model. 12 generic propositions based on Roy's earlier work were derived, and out of 265 propositions tested, 216 or 82% were supported. So to make the previously read outlines more understandable, the credibility of Sister Callista Roy's adaptation model theory has been thoroughly tested and has also become a basis of massive studies, having physiological psychology, psychology, sociology, and nursing as its roots and basis. Roy made use of scientific, philosophical, and cultural assumptions, and the scientific premises of Roy's model are based on Bertalanffy's general systems theory and Helson's adaptation theory. So a quick review about these theories. So the general systems theory by Ludwig von Bertalanffy describes how to break whole things into parts and then to learn how the parts work together in systems. As for adaptation theory by Harry Helson, the theory holds that individuals adapt to levels of stimulation in certain environmental contexts. Okay, so adaptation. According to Roy, adaptation is the process and outcome whereby thinking and feeling persons, as individuals or in groups, use conscious awareness and choice to create human and environmental integration. So she explained that adaptation occurs when people respond positively to environmental changes, and it is the process and the outcome of individuals and groups who use conscious awareness, self-reflection, and choice to create human and environmental integration. So what is human and environmental integration? So the person is in constant interaction with a changing environment. So for the person to survive, he or she needs to withstand these changes in the environment, which can be acquired through adaptation. So nursing. Roy defined nursing as a healthcare profession that focuses on human life processes and patterns and emphasizes promotion of health for individuals, families, groups, and society as a whole. Nursing as a science. So Roy defined nursing as a science as a developing system of knowledge about persons that observes, classifies, and relates the processes by which persons positively affect their health status. Nursing as a practice discipline is nursing's scientific body of knowledge and used for the purpose of providing an essential service to people that is promoting to affect health positively. So Roy defined nursing as a scientific and humanistic profession and emphasized the importance of their specialized knowledge in contributing health needs and well-being of the community. Roy identifies nursing as a factor that expands adaptive abilities and enhances person and environmental transformation. She differentiated nursing as a science from nursing as a practice discipline. So, person. According to Roy, as an adaptive system, the human system is described as a whole with parts that function as unity for some purposes. Human systems include people as individuals or in groups, including families, organizations, communities, and society as a whole. So despite their great diversity, all persons are united in a common destiny. Human systems have thinking and feeling capacities rooted in consciousness and meaning by which they adjust effectively to changes in the environment and in turn affect the environment. So Roy defined person as the main focus of nursing, the recipient of care, a living, complex adaptive system with internal processes acting to maintain adaptation in the four adaptive modes, which are the physiological, self-concept, role function, and interdependence, which will be discussed later on. According to Roy, health is a state and a process of being and becoming integrated and a whole person. It is a reflection of adaptation, that is, interaction of the person and the environment. Roy defines health as the state where humans can continually adapt to stimuli. Because illness is a part of life, health is the result of a process where health and illness can coexist. Basically, in a conceptual framework, you can see health being the dependent variable as it is being affected by the environment and other mediating variables. Its state will depend on a person's adaptive abilities, which is being enhanced and worked on by nursing. So, environment. Roy defined environment as all the conditions, circumstances, and influences surrounding and affecting the development and behavior of person or groups, with particular consideration of the mutuality of person and earth resources that includes focal, contextual, and residual stimuli. She also defined it as the changing environment that stimulates the person to make adaptive responses. So the environment is a stimulus or input that requires a person to adapt. So these stimuli can be positive or negative. Roy categorized these stimuli as focal, which are those that immediately confront the individual in a particular situation. Contextual, which are the rest of the stimuli present with the focal stimuli and contribute to its effect. Residual is the additional environmental factor present within the situation but whose effects are unclear. So moving on to the assumptions of Roy's adaptation model. So here are the scientific assumptions. Systems of matter and energy progress to higher levels of complex self-organization. Consciousness and meaning constitute person and environment integration. Self and environmental awareness is rooted in thinking and feeling. Human decisions account for integration of creative processes. Thinking and feeling mediate human action. System relationships include acceptance, protection, and fostering interdependence. Persons and the earth have common patterns and integral relationships. Person and environment transformations are created in human consciousness. And lastly, integration of human and environment results in adaptation. Philosophical assumptions. Persons have mutual relationships with the world and God. Human meaning is rooted in the omega point convergence of the universe. God is intimately revealed in the diversity of creation. Persons use human creative abilities of awareness, enlightenment, and faith. So persons are accountable for sustaining and transforming the universe. Cultural assumptions. Cultural experience influence how Roy's adaptation model theory is expressed. A concept central to the culture may influence the Roy's adaptation model theory to some extent. Cultural expressions of the Roy's adaptation model may lead to changes in practice activities such as nursing assessment. As Roy's adaptation model involves within a culture, implication for nursing may differ from experience in the original culture. Okay, so theoretical assertions. Roy's adaptation model focuses on adaptation of the person, so the person experiences stimuli from both environment and the self. So as they experience stimuli, there will eventually be a response. which is either adaptive or ineffective. So adaptive response promote integrity. It helps the person achieve the goals of adaptation, which is survival, growth, reproduction, mastery, and person and environmental transformation. This leads to health. So ineffective, on the other hand, is its opposite. So it fails to achieve or threaten the goals of adaptation, which will lead to disruption of integrity. So the nursing goal is to assist person's adaptation effort by managing the environment. Roy's adaptation model has two interrelated subsystems. First is the primary functional or control processes subsystem, which consists of a regulator and a cognator. So as you can see here in the Venn diagram, I listed their differences and similarities. Okay, so these are both methods of coping according to Roy. Regulator is by physiological adaptive mode. It responds automatically through neural, chemical, and endocrine coping processes. As for the cognator, it is by self-concept, interdependence, and role function adaptive modes. It responds through four cognitive emotive channels, which are the perceptual information processing, learning, judgment, and emotion. So secondary or effect subsystem includes the physiological needs, self-concept, role function, and interdependence. Responses to stimuli are carried out through four adaptive modes, which are the physiological physical, self-concept group identity, role function, and interdependence, which will be discussed later on. So human social systems. There are two types of control processes. First is the stabilizer, which is concerned with stability, involves organizational structure, cultural values, and regulation of daily activities of system. Innovator subsystem, on the other hand, is concerned with creativity, change, and growth. Logical form. Roy's adaptation model is both deductive and inductive. So it is deductive because much of Roy's theory is derived from Helson's psychophysics theory. Helson developed concepts of focal, contextual, and residual stimuli which Roy utilized for nursing to form a typology of factors related to adaptation levels of persons. So Roy's adaptation model theory is also inductive in a sense that she developed the four adaptive modes from research and nursing practice experiences of herself, colleagues, and students.
Acceptance by the nursing community using Roy's adaptation model. Roy's adaptation model is widely accepted and applied into the different fields of nursing, which are practice, education, and research. Practice. The Roy adaptation model is deeply rooted in nursing practice, and this in part contributes to its continued success. Roy adaptation model remains one of the most frequently used conceptual frameworks to guide nursing practice nationally and internationally. Roy's model is useful for nursing practice because it outlines the features of the discipline and provides distinction for practice, education, and research. The model considers goals, values, the patient, and the practitioner intervention. Roy adaptation model is being implemented in nursing practice. Implemented means na-apply na siya sa mga nursing nga practice. Moreover, the Roy adaptation model has been applied to nursing care of individual group of patients like care of young women who are contemplating smoking cessation, education on adaptation to early-stage breast cancer in a sample of 125 women in menopause, patients with post-traumatic stress disorder, care of needs of adolescents with cancer, care of patient with asthma, high normal or hypertensive, blood pressure readings, death and dying, perceptions of recovery after coronary artery bypass surgery. So Roy's adoption model is daghan na gyud siya na-applyan yung nursing care na mga patient. Education. Roy adaptation model has been used in educational setting. has guided the nursing education of more than 100,000 student nurses in the US and other countries. This model distinguishes nursing science from medical science by having the content of these areas taught in separate courses. So, kibali, diri nimo mailhan ang kalahian sa nursing science sa medical science na course.
Research.
Roy has stated that theory development and testing of developed theories are the highest priority for nursing. Roy's theory has generated a number of general propositions. From these general propositions, specific hypotheses can be developed and tested. The Roy adaptation model is an approach to nursing that has made and continues to make significant contribution to the body of nursing knowledge. However, many areas remain for future development as healthcare progress. So, ang uban nga mga knowledge is matun-an na nato siya sa future if napay uban nga mga healthcare nga ma-explore or ma-discover. Roy's adaptation model critique. Clarity. The meta-paradigm concepts of the Roy's adaptation model, person, environment, nursing, and health are clearly defined and consistent. Roy clearly defines the four adaptive models: physiological, self-concept, interdependence, and role function. Roy further proposed that behavior in one adaptive mode affects and is affected by the other modes. Simplicity. The Roy model includes the concept of nursing, person, health, illness, environment, adaptation, and nursing activities. It also includes two sub-concepts, the regulator and cognitor, and four modes: physiological, self-concept, role function, and interdependence. After learning these concepts and sub-concepts, nurses will appreciate the simplicity of Roy's adaptation model. Generality. Roy's model is generalizable to all settings in nursing, but nursing scholars observe that it is limited in a scope because it primarily addresses the person. Environment adaptation of the patient and information about the nurse is implied. However, the broad scope of Roy's model is an advantage because it may be used for theory building and for deriving middle-range theories for testing and studies of smaller range of phenomena. Accessibility or empirical precision. Roy's broad concepts stem from theory in physiological psychology, sociology, and nursing. Empirical data indicate that this general theory base has substance. Despite the progress made over the past 25 years, the greatest need to increase the empirical precision of the Roy adaptation model is for researchers to middle-range theory based on the model with empirical references specifically designed to measure concept proposed in a derived theory. Importance or the derivable consequences. The model provides direction for quality nursing care that addresses the holistic needs of the patient. This model is also capable of generating new information through the testing of the hypotheses that have been derived from it. Overview of the adaptive model. We have the subsystem, we have the adaptive mode, and we have the coping need. For subsystem, we have the regulator. For adaptive mode, we have physiological. The physiological adaptive mode refers to the way a person as a physical being responds to and interacts with the internal and external environment. The physiological adaptive mode basic need is physiological integrity. For coping need, we have oxygenation to maintain appropriate oxygenation through ventilation, gas exchange, and gas transport. Nutrition to maintain function, to promote growth, and to replace tissue through ingestion and assimilation of food. Elimination to excrete metabolic waste primarily through the intestines and kidneys, activity and rest, to maintain balance between physical activity and rest, protection, to defend the body against infection, trauma, and temperature changes primarily by way of integumentary structure and innate and acquired immunity. Senses, to enable person to interact with their environment by sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smells. Fluid and electrolyte and acid-base balance, to maintain homeostatic fluid, electrolyte, and acid-base balance to promote cellular, extracellular, and systemic function. Neurological function, to coordinate and control body movements and consciousness and cognitive emotional process.
Endocrine function, to integrate and coordinate body functions. Cognitor subsystem.
Self-concept. The self-concept adaptive mode refers to the psychological and spiritual characteristics of a person. The self-concept consists of the composite of a person's feelings about himself or herself at any given time. The self-concept is formed from internal perceptions of other action. The self-concept has two major dimensions, the physical self and the personal self. The basic need of self-concept is psychic and spiritual integrity. Coping need for physical self. Body sensation, to maintain a positive feeling about one's physical being. Body image, to maintain a positive view of one's physical body and physical appearance. Coping need for personal self. Self-consistency, to maintain consistent self-organization and to avoid disequilibrium. Coping need for self-ideal or self-expectancy, to maintain positive or hopeful view of what one is, what one expects to be, and what one hopes to do. Interdependence adaptive mode. Interdependence adaptive mode basic need is relation integrity or security in nurturing relationships. Role function adaptive mode. Role function adaptive mode basic need is social integrity. Coping need for moral, spiritual, ethical self, to maintain a positive evaluation of who one is, to maintain close, nurturing relationship with people who are willing to give and receive love, respect, and value. To know who one is and is what society's expectations are so that one can act appropriately within society.
Hi everyone, I am your nurse for today, Nurse Jess, and I am assigned to take a good care of the patient through Sister Callista Roy's adaptation model. For this video, we will look at the case history of Mr. James Martinson. Mr. James Martinson is a 42-year-old man with a lifelong history of heavy smoking, comes to the hospital's ER because he feels as though he cannot breathe. After initial workup, it is found that along with COPD exacerbation, they have also identified from a CT of the chest what looks to be like a large mass consuming all of his left lung. With additional testing, the tumor is found to be aggressive stage 4 lung cancer that has metastasized to his spine. The healthcare team recommends a complete lobectomy and to immediately begin chemo and radiation. Using the first step of Roy's adaptation model nursing process, I am to assess the patient in 4 adaptive modes. Let's start with physiological mode. Mr. James Martinson is likely coping up with significant life changes and threats, such as radically new ways of utilizing oxygen and the future pain and fatigue involved with the treatment. The second one is in self-concept mode. In self-concept mode, Mr. James Martinson is most likely devastated at the news of this life-threatening diagnosis and what is to come in the near future. The third one is in role performance mode. In role performance mode, Mr. James Martinson is most likely to worry how his friends and family will take the news. Will this affect the relationship he has? Is that also at risk? Now, we will move on to the second step of Freud's adaptation model processes. In this context, we will assess through the stimuli. The first one is in focal stimuli. In focal stimuli, the central stimuli affecting the patient is the aggressive stage 4 lung cancer. The second one is in contextual stimuli. In contextual stimuli, it is the history of Mr. James Martinson in smoking and addiction to nicotine. And the last one is in residual stimuli. In residual stimuli, it is the potential other medical condition that remain unclear of this time, like the family history and predispositions. So that is all about it, about the application of Roy's adaptation model. The model can help provide an effective framework for addressing the adaptive needs of individuals, families, and groups. Once again, I am Nurse Jess, and I hope that you learned something from this video.